By us bright, shining bright, share with us your golden light. I live right by several rivers that I like to take boats down. We have a raft, we have kayaks, and we have canoes. Over the years, we've collected a lot of boats, and one of my favorite ways to get to know the river is to float down it in a boat and to learn about the river just by sitting there in the middle of it. In the story we're going to hear today, Grandpa Ivy also enjoys going down the river where he lives. Let's call the story fairies and hear the story of Grandpa Ivy's river adventure. Story fairies, come and bring stories clear and true. Story fairies, come and bring stories to our story ring. Grandpa Ivy lives in the town of Riverbend, and the town was named Riverbend because it was located right in the bend of a river. And not just any bend in a river, but a bend that was so big that it looks like the river turns around and goes back to where it came from. Right there is where Riverbend is, right in the middle of that bend. Grandpa Ivy had lived in Riverbend a long time, and he had gotten to know the river well over the years. One of his favorite ways to get to know the river was by floating down it in his raft. On this particular morning, Grandpa Ivy woke up and he went outside to check on his garden. And then he went down to the riverbank and stood by the river for a few minutes. The air was hot and humid already, even though it was early. Grandpa Ivy thought today would be a good day to go on a float down the river. So he went back home and had a big filling breakfast. He packed a snack and he got his raft and he walked up the river. You see, when Grandpa Ivy went down the river, all he had to do was hike up the river with his raft, then put his raft in the river, and then float back down to his house. He hiked up the little path next to the river with his raft and got to his place to put it in. He got in his raft and pushed off from the shore. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. The river took him this way and that way, and soon he came past a little boggy area. He heard the sounds of frogs, and then he saw a familiar face stick up. It was a little frog. Grandpa Ivy, where are you going, and can I come along? Asked Little Frog. Well, Little Frog, said Grandpa Ivy, I'm floating back to my house, and I would love to have some company. Grandpa Ivy steered his raft right over to the bog, and Little Frog jumped on the boat and joined Grandpa Ivy. He pushed off from the shore and started to sing. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. He and Little Frog floated this way and that way and let the river carry them around rocks and past meadows. Soon they came to an area where there were lots of fallen trees by the river. They heard some sounds in one of the fallen trees, and then the fuzzy little face of a mouse stuck out. It was Little Mouse. Grandpa Ivy, said Little Mouse, where are you going? Well, I'm floating back to my house, and Little Frog has come along with me. May I come too? Asked Little Mouse. Certainly, said Grandpa Ivy, and he steered the boat over to the shore so that Little Mouse could get on with them. Little Mouse found a spot to sit there with Grandpa Ivy and Little Frog. Grandpa Ivy pushed off from the shore. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. The river took the three of them this way and that way. They floated around rocks and past houses, and soon they came to a thick pine forest. The river was darker here, and it was a little bit chilly. They could hear all kinds of activity in the tree limbs above them, and soon a little gray squirrel came scampering down a tree to the river's edge. Hello, Grandpa Ivy, said Little Squirrel. Well, hello, Little Squirrel, said Grandpa Ivy. Where are you going? Asked Little Squirrel. Well, I'm floating back to my house, and Little Frog and Little Mouse have joined me. May I come too? Asked Little Squirrel. I would love that, said Grandpa Ivy. So he carefully steered his raft over to the shore so that Little Squirrel could hop on. Little Squirrel found a place to sit there with Grandpa Ivy and Little Mouse and Little Frog. And once everyone was settled, Grandpa Ivy pushed the boat off the shore once again. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Even though the trip had started out with just Grandpa Ivy on his raft, now the raft was quite full with all of his friends. The river took them this way and that way. It carried them around rocks and past farmlands, and soon they came to a meadow with very tall grasses. The breeze was blowing the grasses this way and that, and they could hear the sound of movement in the grasses, and then a little deer appeared. It was Little Deer, Grandpa Ivy's friend. Hello, Grandpa Ivy, said Little Deer. Where are you all going? Well, I'm floating back to my house, and along the way I have had Little Frog and Little Mouse and Little Squirrel join me. Oh, I would love to join you all too, said Little Deer. May I? Well, Little Deer, I would love to have you join us, but I'm afraid there's just no more room left on this raft. Oh, please, said Little Deer. You're so close to home. I can stand on the raft, and I promise to stand very still. Grandpa Ivy looked at the full raft, and he laughed, but he thought, why not? And he steered the raft toward the shore. He held it still as Little Deer got on and carefully found just enough room for her 4 hooves. Little Deer, you must hold very still, said Grandpa Ivy. For if you don't, you could topple the raft and we will all fall in. I promise, said Little Deer. Grandpa Ivy very carefully pushed them off the shore. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. The river took them this way and that way, around rocks and by other river banks where there were plants growing. Grandpa Ivy turned to his friends and he said, we're almost back to my house. We have one more big curve in the river and then we will arrive to my beachy riverfront. And they entered the big curve. And just as they did, Little Bear came out of the woods. And Little Deer saw Little Bear and got so excited that she jumped up in the air and said, hello, Little Bear. Well, she forgot how still she was supposed to stay. And that quick movement made the raft go this way and that way and this way, and then it toppled over and they all went into the river. They poked their heads up out of the river and looked around, all of them laughing at each other. Oh, my friends, said Grandpa Ivy, we almost made it back without falling in. And then they all laughed together. As they got up on the shore and started to shake and dry off, Grandpa Ivy invited them back to his house. He said, why don't we enjoy lunch together, friends, and dry off in the sun? They all thought that was a wonderful idea, so they followed Grandpa Ivy to his house for lunch and some time to be together. And all was well in the world. Thank you, fire fairies, for giving us your light. That was the story of Grandpa Ivy's river adventure. I wonder if you've ever been on an adventure on a river. Have you ever floated in a raft down a river or gone fishing, taken a kayak or a boat? There's lots of different ways we can travel down a river. Friends, thank you for being here with me today. I've enjoyed spending my morning with you. We will be back here tomorrow for another day of story time, another chance to hear a story, another chance to sing some songs and practice our new songs and verses together. Have a wonderful rest of your day and know that you are loved.